Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons match preview with myself and Sloth. Ipswich at home, a pretty important game at this stage of the season before the international break, and we're going to be dissecting how Ipswich play, how they've actually started to compete in the Premier League, and why we feel like it's going to be a much tougher game than probably most people will be predicting. So, yeah, if you enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe, all of that jazz. And yeah, Sloth, let's talk about Ipswich. They've obviously made quite a few signings on their kind of first bounce back to the Premier League in some time. And to be honest, if you look at the results they've got so far, they've actually done okay. I know obviously the points wouldn't suggest that they've done amazing, but as we get into the overview here, only got 1 point less than us. We've got 5, they've got 4. We've scored one more goal than them, conceded the same number, and we're only one position above them in 14th compared to their 15th. When we look at the expected stats, however, it looks a little bit different. So the expected points are kind of the same. We're slightly underperforming in that sense. Expected goals scored, we've again underperformed there. Ipswich just about on par. Expected goals conceded. Now Ipswich and ourselves are pretty much down the bottom for this expected goals conceded stats. We're definitely in the bottom 4 or 5 in the league, and at the expected position there. So we should be one less position where we are now, and Ipswich should be a few places below in 19th. So to be honest, it hasn't been the best start for either of them, but Ipswich had a very, very tough start. They played City and Liverpool in their first opening couple games. They've played Brighton away. They played Villa at home. So they have had quite a few difficult games, Slough. They've actually drawn their last, I think, 4 or 5 games in the league. So it's not like they're getting absolutely trounced in these matches, and they're starting to be more competitive. Obviously picked up a really good point against Aston Villa at the weekend. So how have you assessed Ipswich's start to the Premier League season so far?
Well, I think they've looked very sharp, and it's something that I think they'll have a lot of confidence from the way they've played, but also the quality they've shown. And we've spoken a lot about certain players they have, particularly Jacob Greaves, and I think he had a bit of a howler for Villa's first goal, I think it was.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But aside from that, he's been really solid, and he stepped up into the league well. The kind of key aspect for me is their goals. They don't look out of their depth, and Liam Delap in particular has impressed me. He's someone that I watched quite a lot last season because he was at Hull, where obviously I liked Phillips and, well, Jacob Greaves. So I liked quite a lot of their players. But obviously making the permanent signing from City, I think he's taken to the league really well. And if he can hit double figures, I think, before February, I think they'll be in a really good place. They don't look too far out of their depth, and I think out of the teams that have come up, they seem to have the most threat, I'd say, particularly from that left-hand side with Leif Davis and Jack Clark.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. We're going to get into how Ipswich play and their patterns of play and their build-up and what we need to be careful of, because they've got some fantastically talented footballers. Like you say, Delap, very, very good striker, almost similar to, I would say, someone like Armando Broja, who we were linked with. I think Liam Delap would have thrived in a David Moyes system, and I still think he would be a fantastic player for us right now if we were to need to go and sign a striker. Cough, not that we need to do that, but so with Ipswich, they do play more of a 4-2-3-1/4-4-2 out of possession. It is a lot more fluid than this rigid structure suggests, but this is how they lined up against Aston Villa, and they have done in pretty much every game so far this season. However, the way they utilize their 4-2-3-1 is a little bit different. Like you say, Leif Davis on the left-hand side at left back is very much the overlapping fullback, and because they have Jack Clark, a more technical player who likes to come inside, he'll play more as an inside forward rather than an outline touchline winger. And on the right hand side, you've got I think it's Ogbene. Can't remember how to say his name. But he played. Yeah, Ogben. Sorry, I'm probably butchering that, but he plays out on the right hand side, and you've got Amari Hutchinson playing as kind of the roaming number 10 in behind the lap. However, what you'll see is Hutchinson, when we get into these kind of clips, is Hutchinson drifts out to the right hand side. Jack Clark occupies the kind of inside left forwards position, And then that allows Davis to get forward. And Twan Zabi, the right back, who I'm sure you're all familiar with from his time at Man United, he's more of the defensive player. He's not someone that's going to be overlapping time and time again and having that attacking threat like Davis. So you'll be able to see it. But who would you say is the main man to look out for in that lineup stuff? I know you mentioned about, your time watching Hull, the likes of Greaves, Delap, but they do have some really fantastic players. And one key one for me is probably going to be Hutchinson in that number 10 position.
I think he's a massive threat. I think they do really well to balance it up, because I also think Eve Davis can be a massive threat with his just supply into the area. He's got a fantastic delivery. He's excellent on the ball. And, he's someone that we were reportedly looking at as a long-term replacement for Emerson. But I think he would fit in fantastically. As I mentioned, the delivery and ability he has on the ball is absolutely fantastic. And when you combine two quite quick, agile players who can deliver, and, Hutchinson adds the threat of a very wicked shot on him, then they're going to be big problems for us.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And we'll kind of look into this now so you can see and visualize just how Ipswich are likely to play off the ball and on the ball. So out of possession, very, very early on into the game against Aston Villa, you can see kind of that flat back four. You've got their right mid, Ogbene, coming in to almost act as that more defensive right-hand side. You've got the double pivot of Kalvin Phillips, who we'll get onto very shortly, and Morsey, who's their captain. And then you can see here, so you can kind of see the 4-2-3-1 shape, right? So you've got Hutchinson, who plays very close to Delap in that right red dotted line. So they do almost act as a 4-4-2, but Hutchinson's slightly deeper of the three. And Jack Clark, you can see, plays very much as that inside forward, even off the ball. And they kind of trust that shape to work for them. So it's not as simple as breaking through Ipswich, even though they are going to be quite compact off the ball. I don't think they're going to be a team that comes to the London Stadium and does relentless presses onto us. There will be moments where they do press, but by and large, they're quite happy to sit in their shape, be quite compact in that midfield with Kalvin Phillips and Morsey sitting in there. And it's something we need to make sure we are aware of. And similar to the Brentford game, we said that they'll be compact in the middle and they'll almost force us wide and make us do something special. And that's what we didn't do enough. I think Kudus and Bowen in particular, as we mentioned in our review show, clearly weren't good enough. And obviously Kudus got hooked at half-time by Lopetegui. But when it comes to Ipswich off the ball, that's how they structure themselves. When we're looking at what Ipswich can do on the ball and how they like to build up, what we need to be aware of, which is more important, I would say, for this preview, they will act as this kind of build-up. So what you'll see is, again, we're seeing it so much with teams. They almost form a back three from the back four. Twan Zabi kind of forms into that back three from right back position. They've got the double midfield pivot of Kalvin Phillips and Morsey, who are very, very close together right now. But normally what you'll see is Kalvin Phillips drift out a little bit more to the left-hand side. And in the bottom right-hand picture, I just want to pay your attention to Hutchinson. He's naturally a left-footed player, so he likes coming to this right-hand side and drifting in between those pockets. And what it means is, if we just move it forward to frame, it almost forms a front five when they're trying to attack whoever they're going to be playing. In this case, it's Aston Villa. And you can see the right midfielder here wins the header. Hutchinson plays very, very close to the right mid position. You've got Liam Delap leading the line in the middle. And on the left-hand side, those two players are there. You've got Jack Clark in the middle, and then you've got the left-back Davis, who's always going to provide that attacking outlet on the overlap and allow Jack Clark that space in the half turn, almost like someone like Jack Grealish, who would like to pick up that space, Emil Smith-Rowe, those types of players is what Jack Clark will be. What do you think of Jack Clark as a player, just touching on that, Sloth? Because player we were linked with, very good technical ability. We decided not to go ahead with it in the end. He's now moved to Ipswich. Is he someone that we need to also be careful of in situations like that? Because I think a lot of our attention will automatically be drawn to Delap, Hutchinson, but Jack Clark's going to pick up those spaces really well and, try and attack us on the half space.
I think he's a very good player. He looks very sharp, and I think he can potentially impress. He is someone that I was a bit nervous about us potentially signing, because I'm not 100% sold he's ready for a club that is looking to push for Europe. But I'm happy to be proven wrong by any sort of, any English winger. I think he's someone that does possess a lot of skill. I'm not quite sure he has the pace, like the blistering pace, that a lot of wingers rely on now. But I do think that when you're talking about Jack Clark, the goal involvement that he brings is, it's not just his crossing delivery. He's got a fantastic eye for goal, and that's what we saw for Sunderland a lot last season.
Yeah, no, I think he's more of a connector rather than someone like Hutchinson, who would be more of a danger in and around that area. I think they're both good connectors, but as you say, I don't think Jack Clark's he's not someone like Anthony Gordon who can beat a player 1v1 for pace every time. He's someone that naturally likes to come inside on his right foot. And again, Ipswich have made a system for him that works. He fits in quite well to how they play because he has Davis on the left-hand side, providing that overlap and allowing that space to drift inside. And Hutchinson, he kind of moves on to the right-hand side. So you've got Delap as your striker, Hutchinson and Clark, sorry, name lost me there. Clark as the other kind of almost two number 10s either side. And then Davis acts as that overlapping fullback. And then you've got Ogbene on the right-hand side. So just to re-emphasize that for you in another visual, again, 3-2 split. Kalvin Phillips likes to drift out onto more of the left-hand side of the midfield too. And then their captain, Morsey, stays in the centre. And then you get situations like this where, again, highlighting Jack Clark in the centre of your frame there. He almost acts as that kind of advanced 8/10 in the middle. And again, Davis just always going to be providing that overlap, which we have to be alert to, especially if it's going to be Wan-Bissaka on that right-hand side, Mavropanos. We don't know who's going to be playing there yet, but we tend to switch off in those situations. So we're going to have to be careful of those balls over the top because it killed us against Chelsea and we can't afford to do that against Ipswich, even though, again, no disrespect to Ipswich, they're not the level of Chelsea, but they still could pose a similar, if not more of a threat than Chelsea because we don't want to underestimate them. So, I mean, looking across their team, man, they've got some really good players, Ipswich. One player we want to talk about is Kalvin Phillips. He'll be looking to come back with a point to prove, playing in that central midfield position alongside Morsey. So what are your thoughts on Kalvin Phillips' return to West Ham, Slough? And is he actually someone we can target as a weakness or someone we need to also be careful of when he does have possession of the ball?
Look, there's no doubting that he has shown a lot of quality in the past. I think we've got to target him because, it's if he has a game like he did against us, there's no way we're not winning because he was diabolical for us. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Ipswich Town, but I think he was just beyond awful in a West Ham. And you can say he was unlucky, but I think if we can get in early and whether it's nick a ball off him or just leave something on him, I think maybe there's a question over his mentality. And I don't like saying that about players, but I think he showed in his time at West Ham that is still a major question mark. And if we can get in, if we can get pace targeting him, pressing him, I think we can maybe get a moment of weakness and prey upon that because he is someone who, undoubtedly has ability. He can find players from 30, 40 yards and he can create space for himself. But, he didn't show any of that at West Ham. And if he can make a silly decision or try and play a silly pass, then I think there's going to be a clear opportunity for us there because Ipswich, as we said, they like to create these overloads and they like to attack in numbers. And if we can, see them breaking, press Phillips and win the ball back, then we could have a massive opportunity to get a goal.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's also why probably Ipswich try to be a little bit more compact off the ball. And as you say, in turnovers, it could be a killer for us because, Phillips and Morsey, not the most agile or mobile of midfields. And how often have we said that our midfielders lacked that kind of agility and, ball carrying threat or just someone that can run? We should be able to get them in transition if they are overloading, like you say, in the examples we've shown. But all in all, they're going to be quite compact off the ball. And I think this is a game for Paqueta to really show his quality in central areas. And you know what? For the goal against Brentford, he did that. Where in the second half, he was the one that won the ball back on the left-hand side. He drifts inside and connects with Bowen. I know he was the one that kind of created it in the end. But if we're going to have Paqueta playing centrally in this game, which for me, he absolutely has to, because Ipswich are likely to sit off a little bit deeper and give him that time on the ball in the middle of the park. Phillips and Morsey, they're not going to be going out, gung-ho trying to press our midfield. The initial press is going to come from either Delap dropping a little bit deeper, Hutchinson kind of buzzing off him playing as that too. So I'm looking at Paqueta in this game to be the key figure for West Ham, because he is capable of unlocking a defence like Ipswich, and especially when we're going to try and get in and around the midfield and kind of not beat them with our agility, but beat them with our technical players as well. So who's key for you, Slough, in this game for West Ham? Because, there's a few different players we could be looking at for this game. Does Somerville come in for you? I know we're going to do our starting 11 prediction in a separate video, but any clues as to whether Somerville would start for you?
I mean, there's a couple of question marks over who's going to get picked in that front three. I think Somerville deserves to start. I would change our centre forward, and that is going to be something that is questionable. Whether it's potentially playing Kudus down the middle or whether it is Fulkrug. But for me, I just I haven't seen anything in Antonio, and he got an assist for the Brentford game. I think it's incredibly generous to label what he did as an assist, but you have to be there, and his assist chance. Yeah, but I just don't think he offers anything in terms of the full 90 minutes. I think he has to be an impact sub from now on, in my opinion. And if I'm looking at someone to be the key threat, I think Bowen has to step up. It's an important game for him to show, not only why he's captain, and there's already people questioning that decision, but I think for him to regain that form that he ended with last season and got him that England call up and got him to the Euros, but turn our fortunes around as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Obviously, when we're recording this, we don't know if Fulkrug's going to be fit enough to play. It's likely he's probably going to be in the squad. Whether Lopetegui wants to start him straight away, that remains to be seen. But as you say, if you're picking the options up front right now, Antonio would probably be quite far down on my list, especially in this type of game. I don't think he's the man to start or lead that line for us against Ipswich. But what's your predictions? What's your feelings going into the weekend, Slough? It's a big game, It's a massive game going into the international break for West Ham and Lopetegui, because things are starting to bubble up a little bit. And if we don't get 3 points in this game, we've then got Spurs away after the international break, then United at home. The games never get easier in the Premier League. So these are the games you have to capitalise on as a manager, right?
Definitely. And I think that if we don't win convincingly, I think it could turn a bit ugly. I'm going to go with a 3-1. I think we'll be quite fortunate with that. I think Ipswich may well take the lead, but our quality will shine through. However, we don't know what West Ham's going to turn up, and it honestly wouldn't surprise me if it turns a bit ugly. I've been a West Ham supporter for long enough to know that it's totally unpredictable, and a newly promoted side is kind of the one that we may well fall apart to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a tough one to call this, because Ipswich do have some really good technical players, and Delap is one that concerns me about our defense, especially if we're trying to play this high press. The emphasis is going to be on us to go forwards and attack Ipswich, and just scared that it's going to leave spaces up like it did again when Ipswich played Aston Villa. Delap's second goal just powered through from the left hand side, cut inside, and yeah.
I think the good thing is that Carlos Sanchez looked like he had rigor mortis. So I think it's we have got decent pace at the back, and if Mavropanos plays on that right hand side up against Leif Davis, I think his pace could potentially counteract that. But you never know. It's a big question with our lineup, and
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see what we do lead out with.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with going to go with a 2-1 win. I think we'll just edge it. But as you say, no way am I predicting us to keep a clean sheet. And it was the same story last season. So we're going to keep it going. But hopefully we do get 3 points. I'm looking for a statement from the team, not just Lopetegui, but from the players themselves as well. They need to hold that accountability for a game like this and, go out there before the international break and get 3 points on the board as we come back from that international break. So yeah, let us know down below in the comments. What are your predictions for this game? How do you see it turning out? Who would you start? Would you start Antonio up front? Would you bring someone else in? Does Alvarez come back in after his suspension? What would you do? Let us know down below in the comments. And if you've enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. And Slough, until the next one,
come on, you eyes.